All right, guys, I wanted to walk you through the notes that you're going to be taking today on page 38 in your notebook. These notes are going to be all about wind and what it is and why it happens. If you like to color code like me, I am using pink, orange, and yellow highlighters. You can use any colors that you like, but I do encourage you to highlight because it helps when you go back and study and read over your notes. Things will pop out a little bit better that way. Okay, so like I said, these notes are all about what is wind, and these notes are coming from TCI 6.2 to 6.3, primarily 6.3, but both of those are important because 6.2 talks about barometers, and air pressure is important when we're talking about wind. So these are going to be pages, I want to say 75 to 77 in your notebook, okay? I'm sorry, in TCI textbook. All right, so let's go ahead and start filling in our blanks here. As you read, you can also be filling them in, or maybe you've already done that. You want to make sure you have the right blanks filled in. But the first bullet point, and this is really important, is wind is caused by differences in atmospheric pressure. That is super duper important, so I'm going to go ahead and highlight that in pink because that's kind of like the big takeaway from this section. If you remember from yesterday, I made you repeat that sentence in class several times, so you're definitely going to see that one. I'm going to star that one as well, okay? All right, wind is air moving from a region of higher pressure, to a region of lower pressure. That was also something that I mentioned over and over yesterday. I'm going to put that one in yellow because it's explaining, actually, I always do orange in explaining. Okay, so those are very important right there. You definitely need to know those. Cold air is denser and has a higher pressure than warm air does. Cold air is more dense because if you look right here, this is the same picture from figure, I want to say 3A that we looked at in the text yesterday. If you look right here, the high pressure is coming from those particles being so close together. They're so dense, like if we had a bunch of kids in our classroom, it'd be really high pressure. And we know that colder air is denser because the particles are closer to each other. So cold air is always denser and has higher pressure than warm air does. So that usually means that wind is going to blow from colder regions towards warmer ones. And don't let that confuse you, because I know with thermal energy we talked about temperature. Here with wind, this energy has to do with pressure. It's still energy. And so energy always behaves the same way. It always goes from high to low. And in this case, we're talking about pressure. So it goes from high pressure to low pressure. Okay? All right. So let's dissect this diagram again. We did in class yesterday when we did the reading. But this diagram is all about how differences in atmospheric pressure cause wind. And let's talk about that cold air. So cold air is right here. It says cooler air, and it's kind of hard to see. You can write over it with your pencil just to make sure you know that it says cooler air. Always has higher pressure, okay? Why? Again, those particles are very close together. They're dense, okay? So denser. Oh, I can't spell, guys. It doesn't matter if I'm recording a video for you or live in class. This always happens. That's okay. We'll fix it. So denser air particles. All right, and over here on the right, I have air particles in warmer air with lower pressure because the particles are less dense. If I were to count them, like let's just say, actually it looks like I did this last year, or a student did this last year, and it was 37 particles in this circle, if I were to go through and count them all. In this one over here, I know it's hard to see, but in this one it looks like there's 20 particles. 20 is less than 37. So this is less dense. just writing less dense right there, okay? So what's going on here? Couple things. I have the cooler air that's more dense. What do you know from our density tower that we did in class? Dense things are going to sink. That's why cold air sinks. Less dense things are going to rise. That's why warm air rises. And then here's the big thing that we talked about yesterday, wind, okay? The direction of wind. Because energy always goes from high to low, that wind is going to point in the direction where the high pressure is going towards, which in this case, we have high pressure over here, lower pressure on the right, so that wind is going to go towards the right. I am going to ask you a question at some point in the near future where I'm going to ask you which direction the wind is going, and you're going to need to identify the higher or lower pressure regions, and then just remember that the wind always goes from high to low, so your arrow is going to point towards the lower pressure region, okay? So again, why does wind go from high to low? Energy always behaves the same, guys. It always goes from high to low. So what makes this high pressure? Why? Why does it have high pressure? Because it's more, anybody got it? I know some of you already know what I'm going to say. What is it? It's more dense. That's the whole reason why it has high pressure, okay? Why does the high pressure go towards the low pressure? Because it's less dense. Okay, this is super important. You want to be able to understand and explain this picture here, okay? All right, I'm going to the bullet point underneath that. So the next one says, wind speeds vary from day to day and even throughout the day. That's weather. Weather varies throughout the day, okay? Gentle wind is air that is moving slowly, while strong winds mean that the air is moving quickly. And we talked about this a little bit yesterday too. Why? Why does that happen? An increase in the difference of atmospheric pressure, so like the more high pressure this is and low pressure that is, the bigger the difference are between the two, that's going to increase the wind speed. And that's really important, so you know it, we're going to highlight it. That's going to make wind speeds really fast or really slow. Gentle wind is caused by a small difference between the two pressures, and high wind speeds are caused by larger differences in the air pressure. Scientists use this cause and effect relationship to predict wind speeds so that they can forecast damaging high-speed winds. It's going to be really important if there's like a storm coming or we have really, really high Santa Ana winds, high-speed Santa Ana winds, we want to know about that so that we can take the measures that we need to protect ourselves if in case it's that severe of weather. Okay, so you can calculate the expected wind speed by determining the pressure differences. Like this is how they forecast the wind speed differences across a region. And remember what the tool is called that measures wind speed? Anemometer. An anemometer is a tool that's used to measure wind speed. You want to know that? I definitely ask you that. Okay. Let me move this up a little bit. All right, this is also really important here, okay? Wind is described by the direction from which it is blowing across Earth's surface. Winds are named after the direction that they blow from. Not where they blow towards, where they blow from. I promise you, this is also going to be a question that I ask you on a quick check or test or quiz that's coming up, okay? Winds are named from the direction that they blow from. So we do name our winds, okay? So there's two examples that are given in the text. A 10 kilometer per hour northwesterly wind is blowing from the northwest towards the southeast. A 30 kilometer easterly 30 kilometer per hour, easterly wind is blowing from where? Where do you think? It's named after where it came from. It's an easterly wind. Where did it come from? From the east towards the west. Okay. And if it's 30 kilometers, that means it's 3 times as fast as 10 kilometers. Okay. A couple things to help you with this. So I always like to draw. I'm running out of room here, so let's go right here. I always like to draw my compass, and I know you guys know how to do this from elementary school. Okay, so let's put it here to help remind us. This is north. Never eat shredded. Oh, I'm running out of the room. Wheat. Okay, and then let me draw. I'm going to use this example that we gave. This is 10 kilometer per hour northwesterly. Okay, so if I northwesterly, where did I come from? Northwest. And wind always goes in a straight line, okay, unless it comes into another region of high or low air pressure. So this would be this arrow right here, and I'll put the arrow in yellow. This is describing the wind from this first bullet point. Okay, so this is my 10 kilometer. I'm running out of room. I don't want to clutter it too much. But this yellow arrow is describing this wind, okay? Now, if I were to just tell you this, 10 kilometer per hour northwesterly wind, you know so many things already, okay? You know the wind speed. You know the direction. You know where there's high pressure. You know where there's low pressure. You know where there's high temperatures. And you even know where there's low temperatures. So look at that. You know 6 pieces of information just from 3 words. It's kind of incredible. So let's break it down. If I have a 10 kilometer per hour northwesterly wind, that yellow arrow is representing that. What's my wind speed? How fast is it going? 10 kilometers per hour. What direction? Northwesterly. So what's the direction? It's going from the northwest to the southeast. Okay? Where's my high pressure? Wind always goes from high to low. So if it's coming from the northwest, that has to be the high pressure, which means my low pressure has to be the southeast. What do I know about the temperature and the particles, the density of the particles? Remember up here, higher pressure is colder. So where do I have high pressure? Northwest. So my low temps are going to be in the northwest. Where do I have low pressure? Less dense. The warmer area, high temperature. That's going to be in the southeast. Okay. We have a couple more to fill in. So right here, we're jumping back to these last 2 bullet points. When you hear that a 10 kilometer per hour northwesterly wind is forecasted, you know more about the weather than just the wind speed and direction. You also know that the atmospheric pressure is higher and the temperature is colder in the northwest than in the southeast because the wind blows from high to low pressure. Okay? I know this is a big concept. This can be really confusing. So if you need to listen to this again or reread again, I highly encourage you to do that. Make sure that you highlight. Having these colors makes it really helpful. And spend some time really thinking about this, okay? Because I definitely give you some questions about this later. Just always remember the big takeaway. Wind occurs because of differences in air pressure. It always flows from high to low, and we name it from where it came from, okay? All right, guys. Have a good rest of your day.